Welcome back to the Kosi Arsenal channel. My name is Kosi. Welcome back to a brand new video. There's a theory on the internet and we need to talk about it. The theory is that if Arsenal signed EZE from Crystal Palace and sold Odegaard, our creativity problems would be solved and our attack would magically improve. So in this video, we're going to be talking about EZE. Would he replace Odegaard in this Arsenal side? Does it improve our attack magically? And most importantly, should Arsenal pursue this deal? Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel as well. Let me know what you think about these opinions on the internet. They're flying around. Odegaard is having such a hard time, at the club right now. Just a couple of bad months, but everyone is turning their backs on him. But do you think that EZE has got what it takes to replace a gem like Odegaard? Obviously, he's got his good side. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about the downside of a player like EZE as well. But let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment box below. Now, it is no secret that Arsenal are interested in EZE. Even last summer, it was said that Arsenal wanted to do that deal, about 60 million, but Crystal Palace were not willing to let go of two of their best players. That is Michael Olise and EZE. And therefore, they sold Michael Olise to Bayern and kept EZE. Now, Arsenal this summer are looking for an attacking profile, an attacking midfielder that could give us something different in terms of scoring goals, creating chances, beating mid blocks, and most importantly, beating low blocks as well. And Odegaard has been criticized very heavily in those areas. He's one of those players that are so beautiful, gifted on the ball, but when it comes to breaking down teams, when it comes to finding solutions to mid blocks, to low blocks, he doesn't really do it. Now, when Arsenal played free-flowing football, that was in the 22-23-24 campaign and the 22-23 campaign, Odegaard was one of our best performers. Actually, in the 22-23 campaign, he recorded a record 15 goals for Arsenal. Like, ever since Aaron Ramsey, Arsenal really don't get those midfielders that score a lot of goals. We will have one that will give you 8, 9, 10, about 11. But for a midfielder to score 15, it was kind of record numbers. It reminded us of the likes of Cesc Fabregas, the likes of Aaron Ramsey back in the days. And that showed you that when this Arsenal team is playing with a bit of freedom, when this Arsenal team is playing with a bit of joy, a player like Odegaard is such, a dynamite in midfield. Is such, gold to have. But when Arsenal are pressing teams and when Arsenal are suffocating teams and teams are sitting back in shape and they're trying to protect their, their back lines, Odegaard is not as efficient as a player like maybe a James Maddison, maybe a Kevin De Bruyne or a Xavi or, Iniesta. And that's why people are saying Odegaard has got to get out of this team in order for us to find someone who's got the skill set to break down low blocks and break down mid blocks. That is the reason as to why Odegaard is being suggested as one of the players that should be dropped come next season. And EZE is a name that has been fronted as a replacement. Of course, a couple of others as well that we'll talk about later in the video. Now, can EZE really replace Odegaard? The answer is yes and no. It's yes because what Arsenal need right now and what we are hungry for going into a PSG game or going into a UEFA Champions final, hopefully if we get PSG out of this competition, is a player that can take games on by themselves, create chances and score goals probably, right? So if that is what you need right now, yes, EZE can come in and do the job. But if you need a player for the long term, a player that can dictate games, a player that can coordinate play, a player that can coordinate your press, I don't think EZE is the best option if we wanted to replace Odegaard as our captain. So why would EZE be a good fit to come in at Arsenal and play in that pocket of space where Odegaard is? First and foremost, he's a very creative player. And I don't want to say that Odegaard isn't creative because I've already said this. When you think about players like EZE, they've got something that creative players at Arsenal do not have. And that is, he's got a player like Mateta in front of him. He's, all his time at Crystal Palace, he's had a center forward. Despite the fact that these center forwards maybe are not that good, but they're serviceable center forwards. That's very different from the time Martin Odegaard has been at Arsenal. Arsenal don't really play with a real centre forward, and that's why this summer everyone is saying Arsenal have got to go out there and get a centre forward. So Eberechi Eze at Crystal Palace, and this is not to take anything away from him. He's such a creative player. He takes a lot of risk, and that is a real criticism for Martin Odegaard. So the first thing that I really want to add Eberechi Eze to our squad for is that creativity. He's played with a centre forward all his life. He's played with Mateta up front. He's played with Edin Ketia now up front. He's played with Edson Edouard up front. He's played with a centre forward in front of him. He's played with a number 9 in front of him. And that always triggers you to create chances for that player, especially if you're a creative player. And I think what Arsenal fans are looking at in Eze, they're like, what if we get someone who can service our front men? What if we get a player who can service our front line? Now the problem with Odegaard is that we really cannot judge him because Arsenal have never had a serious centre forward during the time Odegaard has been at the club. You think about Edin Ketia, yeah, he's a centre forward, but he's not serviceable, especially at the level that Arsenal are operating. You think about Gabriel Jesus, he's just an absolute joke. The only time Arsenal have had a centre forward that is like a shadow of a centre forward, it has been, for me, Mikel Merino. And I think Havertz done well as well. But it has been Mikel Merino. He has given us that, box presence, that frontman presence that the likes of Odegaard can actually create for. So maybe we give Odegaard one more season with a proper centre forward. If he doesn't create good chances, then maybe he's not the guy. Maybe he's not the creative guy to add to to this midfield. Maybe Zubimendi, Rice, and another player would be much better. And maybe that player could be Eberechi Eze. However, there is something that Eze does that doesn't need a centre forward, and Odegaard doesn't do it. That is taking risks. If you look at the goal that Eze scored against us in that 2-2 draw, that is what I'm talking about. Eberechi Eze is such a fearless player. He really doesn't care. He will carry the ball. He will hit it first time. He will hit it outside the penalty area. He will drive into the penalty area. And that is why Arsenal could benefit so much if Eze was signed, because we really struggle with low blocks and mid blocks. Now, the thing with low blocks is that you're going to win a lot of penalties. And that's why Manchester City were winning a lot of penalties, because teams were sitting in low blocks to stop them. But imagine this. You're stopping a Manchester City with a Bernardo Silva, with a Kevin De Bruyne, with a Leroy Sané, with a Raheem Sterling, with a Phil Foden. All these are players that are comfortable picking up the ball and just driving into your penalty area, and then you don't know what to do, and you're going to bring them down. So that is what Eze has over Odegaard. So if anyone says because we should sign Eze because it takes more risks than Odegaard, I think I might agree, because I've talked about Odegaard's lack of risk even when we signed him way back in 2022, 2023. And I said he's a player that is good. He's a very, very attack-minded player. He drives a lot, especially in terms of ball progression, but he lacks that risk. And when he started taking risks, he scored 15 goals in a single campaign. Now, of course, the other good side about Eberechi Eze that you love about is his goal scoring. He's a goal scoring midfielder. When did we last have a good goal scoring midfielder? I think it was Aaron Ramsey, wasn't it? I think it was Aaron Ramsey. And ever since then, Mikel Arteta coming into this Arsenal team, he has tried to create a role we call a box crusher. The Germans call it a Raumdeuter, kind of a Thomas Muller, a player that is always going to be coming into the midfield, but also arriving in the penalty area a little bit later for him to finish off chances. That is Eberechi Eze. So if you want goals, I think he will score more goals than Martin Odegaard if they're placed under the same conditions as well. He operates in very well in tight spaces. Now, Odegaard does operate well in tight spaces because he's got the skill set of a millionaire footballer. The problem with Odegaard is he loves comfort. And we've talked about him not taking risks. So both of them are comfortable in tight spaces. I don't think Odegaard is looking to run away from tight spaces like people say. I think the difference between Odegaard, and we've seen this with Ethan Nwaneri will get into tight spaces, but he will look to maneuver towards goal. Odegaard will get into tight spaces, but he will look to maneuver outside of danger. So he's going to always keep it safe. He wants to have the ball. He cares about possession. Rather than an Eberechi Eze or rather than an Ethan Neri who really care about just going forward. They don't care about having the ball. They'll lose it, but if they don't, they'll get a goal for you. So, in terms of if I was to analyze Eberechi Eze, he's a good player. He can come in and do a lot for Arsenal, especially in that pocket of space where Odegaard is. He can take more risks for us. He can help us beat mid blocks and low blocks. He can score more goals for us. But there are more things that Odegaard does that people do not see. And that's why I think that for a player like Eberechi Eze, it would actually be very difficult for him to replace a player like Martin Odegaard. And this is why. Number one, the partnership that we have seen at Arsenal between Odegaard, Saka, and White is not a coincidence. This is something because of that has developed due to the profiles that we have. Think about Saka. He's one of the best wingers in the world. And he'll take you on 1v1 and he'll beat you. But he's one of the wingers in the world that need a lot of support. And Odegaard, being that patient player and being that calculated player, always calculative, he has formed such a good partnership with Saka because Saka knows he can rely on Martin Odegaard. If you think about the number of touches Odegaard has in a game, and you compare that to the number of touches Eberechi Eze will have in a game, it tells you the difference. So that partnership on the right-hand side, it's either we lose it, right, and build right from the squad, which is kind of risky, because that is Arsenal's avenue to go. It is Saka, Odegaard, and Ben White. And without White, it has been Julian Timber, and it hasn't worked out very well. So that's the first thing why Eberechi Eze can't come in to replace Martin Odegaard. Because Odegaard is so selfless as a player, and he's so loyal to the principles of the manager. He doesn't care. As long as he's doing what the manager has said, he really doesn't care. With a player like Eberechi Eze, you have him, he's going to come in, change a game. But there are things that Odegaard does that he doesn't do. And the other thing is the pressing. So think about Arsenal. And think about the goals we score, right? And think about Arsenal this season. And think about the goals that we're scoring. We're scoring a lot of set pieces. And by the way, Eberechi Eze is such a fantastic player on set pieces. Better than Declan Rice? Possibly. But when Arsenal were on top and we were hitting 90 goals, 88 goals per season, our goals came from our ability to press high up the pitch effectively and efficiently. So a player like Eberechi Eze, he is hardworking a bit, but not like Odegaard. I mean, Mikel Arteta has about 3 loyal soldiers in this Arsenal team that will press, run until they can't run anymore. That is Kai Havertz, that is Martin Odegaard, and Declan Rice. They do not care how long they've been on the pitch. They run and run and run. And their energy and their level of commitment is absolutely insane. And that's why when Odegaard drops off, it looks bad because we're used to that standard. The bar is set is such a high bar that when it drops, we are like, what is actually going on? So I think the press is something that Arsenal can't lose. With Odegaard, that is something you can't give away. I'll give you an example. In teams like the prime Barcelona, they had Iniesta there, they had Xavi there, and they had Sergio Busquets. So you could think about Xavi as Martin Odegaard. Of course, Xavi was a more technical player. He was insane. But when you think about Xavi, he wasn't quick. He was quick in terms of thinking, in terms of thought. Incredible. But he wasn't quick as a player. And I think Odegaard is quick as well in terms of thought, but he isn't too quick in terms of speed, right? He's got the energy, he can carry the ball, but he isn't very, very fast. I think Odegaard is even faster than Xavi. What Odegaard needs to do is to allow his speed of thought to dictate his game rather than try to use his, timid speed to dictate games. It's as simple as that. If Arteta can get him to do that, he's such a tool to have His pressing is insane. He presses for 90 minutes, and he's one of the players that are always available. They're always running. They're always giving everything they've got, and they do not even have good replacements. They don't even have good cover. So for me, I don't think Eberechi Eze brings that to the team. And lastly, he's a coach on the pitch. Yeah, he's the coach on the pitch. I think whenever Mikel Arteta is instructing his players to do something, he trusts Martin Odegaard to do that. He trusts that there is a guy on the pitch that can lead this team. And I think the reason as to why many people are saying give the armband to Declan Rice is because Rice has got this burst of energy. He's like a Lampard, Steven Gerrard, Patrick Vieira, that kind of player. You know, it's easy to see him because he's running all the time. But with players like Martin Odegaard, he might not run all the time, especially when we are in possession, right? When we're out of position, sure deal, he's going to be running. But when we are in possession, he's not running, he's not driving all the time. At times, he's just making these simple passes. At times, just providing that kind of support for an overlapping White or an overlapping Saka or an underlapping Saka, whatever. But he's a coach on the pitch. So for me, in conclusion, what I would say, I think Eze is a good player. But for £60 million, Arsenal need to have an Eberechi Eze and a Martin Odegaard in the same team, not one or the other. Eze is a 10. Bring him in, scores goals, creates chances. After all, we're going to sign a number 10. But keep Martin Odegaard in this team, and I guarantee by the time we win the Premier League, he's going to be a much better player. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel as well, and let me know what you think about Eze and the Martin Odegaard debate.